Alright, today we're simplifying rational expressions. One thing you need to know is that the denominator cannot be 0. We've talked about that before. You cannot divide by 0, so the denominator cannot be 0. So what they'll do is they'll just give you an irrational expression like this and say, what are the excluded values? Meaning, what can R not be? Right? Meaning, if R was to be this number, you would get 0 on bottom, and you don't want 0 on bottom. Alright? So for a problem like this, you get negative 8 over R squared minus 36. Right? What I want to do is I want to set R squared minus 36 equal to 0. Because I want to find what R cannot be. So I set it equal to 0. And I add 36 to both sides. Well, you could do it a couple different ways. You could just factor this so you know this difference is square. So you know it's R minus 6 times R minus or R plus 6. Which is equal to 0. So you solve for R, you get positive and negative 6. Okay? So you can't have positive or negative 6. This would be your excluded value. If R was positive or negative 6, you get 0 down here, and you can't have that. For it to be a rational expression, you can't have 0 on bottom, so R cannot be plus or minus 6. That would be your excluded values. Alright? So write those down. Okay, now the book doesn't give you any examples. These are examples I came up with, but I want to point these out because you might see them later on. Right? These you don't have to do any factoring or anything. Okay? You just have to know that if it's by itself or if it's time, like if you have, let's say we want to talk about what A cannot be. Okay? Well, if everything's being times by A, what can A not be?
B.
Well, it can't be 0. Because if A is 0, everything on bottom is 0, right? Mm-hmm. So A cannot be 0. What can B not be?
0.
0 as well. Because if B is 0, the whole thing's 0. All right? Over here, what can C not be?
0.
0. Okay? Now, the book really doesn't cover that, but then it throws problems like this. Right? Just be aware that C cannot be 0. That's the excluded value. It can't be 0. Just like here, A can't be 0 and B can't be 0. If they are, then the whole thing's 0 and you can't do it. All right, let's do a couple more. Write this one down. So here, I want to state the excluded value. So I want to set this equal to 0. N squared plus 4n minus 5 equal to 0. Well, what adds to give me positive 4 multiplies to give me negative 5? 5 and 1. So 1 would be negative, 5 would be positive. Right? Factoring, something we've been doing all year. So I set n minus 1 equal to 0. I set n plus 5 equal to 0. My answers are 1 and negative 5. Right? Those are what n cannot be, the excluded values. All right, for something like this, I don't know. There's several different ways of doing it. And once you've done it several times, it's kind of easy just to look and see. All right, that cancels here and that cancels here. But just looking at this, sometimes, like especially first time, it's kind of confusing. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything out here. All right. So what is negative 3 times 4? And then what's x squared times x to the 5th? X to the 7th. Right. When we multiply bases, we add the exponents. Here you still have 9 x to the 6th. Right. Once you have that, now what you should do, and that's not something I'm going to make you do, but what you should do, because usually you can do it in your head, is what can I factor out of both of these? All right. So what I'm going to factor out 3x to the 6th because it comes out of both the top and the bottom. If I took 3x to the 6th out of negative 12x to the 7th, what's left? Negative 4x. If I take 3x to the 6th out on bottom, what do I have left? 3. Okay. So the 3x to the 6th cancels out. All I have left with is negative 4x over 3. right? And that's what it simplifies to. Right? That to me is a lot of extra work when you can kind of just look and see, hey, what can I take out of 12 and 9? Right? I could reduce both these by 3, right? To get the negative 4 over 3. And what could I take out of x to the 7th and x to the 6th? X to the 6th. So I'm left with x. Okay? So you might have to do this a few times until you get the hang of it. But eventually, you can be able to just look to see, hey, what can I take out of it? So let's do one like this. Now after I do it, after I'm asked to simplify, I'm also asked to state the excluded values for R. So once you simplify as much as possible, you have to find out what R cannot be. So here, I'm going to factor the top. I'm going to take 2 out of the top, and I'm left with R plus 9. And I'm going to factor the bottom. Right? I know that I have to add to give me 8, multiply to give me negative 9. So my terms would be R plus 9 and R minus 1. Right? Because 9 and 1 add to give me 8, multiply to give me negative 9. Right? The reason I knew I have to have R plus 9 here is because I have R plus 9 here, and usually one of those is going to cancel. I'm going to have something on the bottom that's going to cancel. So the R plus 9's cancel. I'm left with 2 over R minus 1, right, which is my simplified answer. But I still have to state the excluded values. What can R not be?
1.
Okay. R cannot be 1.
Oh.
Right? If it's 0, 0 minus 1 is negative 1. That's fine. No big deal. So R can't be 1. But there's also something else R can't be. What is it? Well, look up here. Okay. We haven't set this equal to 0. Just because it cancels out, we still need to set it equal to 0. So R plus 9 equals 0. I can't have 1 or negative 9. So R can't be 1, R can't be negative 9. So those are my 3 answers. The simplified version, and then what my excluded values, and it's 1 and negative 9. Right? Just because I cancel up here, right? If I've got negative 9 in here, I'm going to get 0. Right? And 0 times anything is going to be 0, and that leaves me with 0 on bottom. I can't have that. So I got to be able to get rid of everything. So really, when I look for my excluded values, I go back to this. Right? Or what we've factored out. Okay? Any questions? All right. Let's do this one. All right, here I can't factor anything on top. But on bottom, I'm looking for n plus 3. I've got my mindset on I need to get n plus 3. Right? You won't always be able to get it, but most likely you will here. Right? So I need to figure out what adds give me 10, multiplies give me 21. Well, have to be 3 and 7, right? So n plus 3 times n plus 7. My n plus 3's cancel. My simplified version is 1 over n plus 7. Alright. What are my excluded values? Not 3 and 7. Negative 3 and negative 7. Right? I have to set each one of these equal to 0. Which, that would have to be negative 3. This would have to be negative 7 for them to equal 0. So, there's my excluded values. N cannot be negative 3 or negative 7. Alright? Alright, let's do one more. Write this. 36 minus t squared. Right? This is a difference of square. So, it's the square root of the first thing minus the square root of the second thing times the square root of the first thing plus the square root of the second thing. Alright, we've been doing that one. You guys know it. 5t minus 30. I'm going to just factor 5 out, and I get t minus 6. Do I have anything that cancels? What does t minus 6 cancel with?
No, nothing. Nothing.
Well, it does cancel.
6 minus
Okay? But you have to force it to cancel. It doesn't cancel with 6 minus t or 6 plus t. But what I can do is I can change, because what I'm doing is I'm looking for opposites here. This is the opposite of this, right? This is 6 minus t, this is t minus 6. I can change this. Do you know how I can change it to look like this? Anyone know?
Times it by -1.
I factor out -1. So what is 6 divided by -1? -6. What's negative t divided by -1? Positive t. Did I just accomplish what I wanted to? Because the t minus 6 is canceled, right? And I can write -1 times 6 minus 6 plus t on top, or I can just make the whole thing negative and call it 6 plus t on top and 5 on bottom. Right? And there's my simplified version. Now, what are the excluded values of this? What can t not be?
6.
It can't be 6. We go back to this here or here. Right? If I set this equal to 0, t can't be 6 because 6 minus 6 is 0, which would give me 0 all on bottom. So t can't be 6. Good. Here's your homework assignment for today.